So I'm sitting here with Josh Cox. We met through a mutual friend, and he's got an incredible story. And Josh, I just want to say first off, thanks for taking the time to chat with me. Maybe you could just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you live, and what you do for a living.
Yeah, name is Josh Cox. I live in Santa Rosa, California. I'm a personal trainer by trade, and then through doing that, I've actually gotten into a lot of painting as well, and I've managed to commingle the two in a hybrid of personal training that, I'm proud to say I haven't really seen done before, but I'm working on it. So that's essentially kind of the nuts and bolts, the basics of me.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, kind of to dive straight into it, our mutual friend Luke introduced us and said you had this, kind of incredible story, especially early on in life. And I saw online that at age 14 you weighed 265 pounds. When did you start gaining weight as a kid, and what kind of contributed to that?
I started gaining weight as a kid. I would say it became noticeable in about second grade, maybe even first grade, and it wasn't noticeable to me. It was noticeable when I started getting made fun of. And it was one of those things where it's like a weird realization as a little kid when you're like, oh my God, am I fat? Am I getting fat? Like, and to have first and second graders tell you on a daily basis, yes, you are. And, what contributed to it would be all factors that I can't say we've all experienced, but it was just kind of like a happenstance of my parents worked their butts off to doing double jobs, and they rarely were together in the household at the same time growing up because they're working to keep the roof over the head, food on the table, whatnot. So I didn't have a lot of, I don't want to say I didn't have a lot of structure, because there was structure, but there was not a lot of oversight. And so as a young kid, when I started to get made fun of, I naturally turned to food. And I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. I wasn't mature enough to have that sort of cognizance. And it just kind of started to turn into my best friend, where I'd go to school and I couldn't wait to come back home and then just pop in whatever food that I could get my hands on, because there wasn't really anybody to be like, hey, you probably shouldn't eat that entire family size bag of tater tots. And I jam out to that, watch some TV, and then it just kind of went all downhill from there. And it's one of those things where as a kid you're frustrated by it, and you feel like you're trapped in this hole, and you blame anything and everything. And as I started to get healthier, mentally and physically, you start to realize that I was just coping the best that I could, and I did it in a really self-destructive way that I had to come back from as I got older.
I know you said somewhere online that that you got to a point to where you were intentionally throwing up your food. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, so when I started to realize, or no, let me start that over. When I started to get older and kind of figured out like, hey, I need to do something about this, that was kind of the first thing that I went to, is I thought, well, if food's kind of this thing that I can't unlatch from, but it's definitely putting me in this position of I can't escape its grasp, then I'll just get rid of it. That way it's two birds, one stone. I could still eat anything and everything I want to eat, because I just know that I'm going to expel it out of my body. And then it's like, man, that's a twofer. I win. And it's one of those things, I liken it to what I can imagine a drug addict feels like, where they know it's not right. You know it's not right, but you do it anyway for that momentary control. And that's really what it boils down to, is for me on my side, is that I felt I felt like I wasn't in control. And for that moment, throwing up my food, I was in control in a weird way. And I did that for probably about a year and a half, I would guesstimate, straight. And I cut it off cold turkey. I had a day where, and I remember it very well, where I'd eaten so much that I couldn't move, and I've never been in that kind of physical pain from eating before. And I could go on till I'm blue in the face describing to you how I felt, and but I mean, it still wouldn't do justice that I thought I was like gonna die. You know what I mean? Like, I ate so much, and I'm laying there, and weirdly enough, as much as I was just like, well, let's just throw it up and get it over with, I remember laying in my bed as an eighth grader going, is this really, like, where's this going to go now? You know, like, what's the next step of this? And one of the things that I'll forever be thankful for is that even at a young age of being in eighth grade, I at least had that moment of maturation and self-realization to go, this has to stop. There's going to be problems every day, but is this really what you're going to do now? Lay in your bed so gorged that you are in physical pain and just going to keep going this process? Because I mean, I was getting more and more tired. I was, it was all starting to catch up. The bad breath, the bad teeth, all of it, and I just kind of had enough. And I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful because not everybody can do that. Not everybody has that ability to kind of shut themselves off. And I did a lot of self-nurturing and self kind of introversion of like, okay, I'm going to handle it. I'm going to do this.
So that's eighth grade. I know that I saw online that as a freshman, you kind of had a life-changing experience that sounded both extremely painful and also completely life-altering. Can you tell that story and talk about it a little bit?
Absolutely. So when I was a freshman, 2 weeks into freshman year, let me start that over. When I was a freshman, I was made fun of a lot. I was made fun of in middle school a lot, and it just naturally transitioned into high school. And I lived right next to the school. And so I was able to walk to and from every day. And I was just 5-6 blocks, something like that. And within that route, between the school and my house, there was a park that I'd walk through. And it was a shortcut, went right to the high school, and I'd take that route every day. Well, there's this group of kids that would also be hanging out at that park every day. And they would, let me have it on a daily basis, just doing what kids do. They're a group of kids that, really have nothing better to do but kind of look at the portly, dorky-looking fat kid walking through the park in all of his NFL jerseys, because that's all I wore when I was a freshman. I had an NFL jersey for every day of the week, and I thought I was cool. And, it was just this constant degradement that I kind of went through within this 2-week time span between starting freshman year and when the event I'm talking about happened. I went through this process of, okay, how am I going to avoid this? And, I tried to get mad at them and, defend myself, and that just seemed to make it worse. I was feeding into the fire. I was throwing oil on it. So then I go, all right, well, let's try the opposite. If I'm giving them what they want, if they love the reaction that they're getting from me, well, then I should try to not react. And so within that thought process, I took a different route. So then rather than walking straight across the field like I always did, I would take a longer route, and I would ignore them. And they hated that. They absolutely hated the fact that I was avoiding them because they hung out at the same spot every day. And one day, 2 weeks into freshman year, as I'm taking this alternate route long way through the park, I noticed that they are dissecting my walking path. So as I'm walking down one edge of the fence, I could see them crossing the field where clearly we're going to meet at the end of this thing. And they had obviously prepared for, we're going to let this kid have it. He thinks he won. He did not. And it was 6 kids, and they had duct tape in their backpacks ready to do what they did, which was they all kind of gangland style grabbed me by the arms, put me into these bleachers that was at that dissecting point, and they taped me to the bleachers. And it was there that they proceeded to rip open my shirt, and they played with my fat rolls. They took my belly, they'd lift it up, they'd let it drop, they'd laugh, they'd, play with my chest and, call me every name under the sun. I don't know how graphic this could be, but, you could use your imagination if it related to being gay or fat. I was called every one of those things. And After about 10 minutes, felt like forever, but in reality, it was only about 10 minutes. They kind of had their fill and let it go, and and then walked away. And so I was just kind of left there in this traumatic sort of what the hell just happened to me, and what do I do now? And I'm just kind of hanging out. And there's actually a homeless guy that was in the creek, kind of scourging around, that was right across from the bleacher set. And he comes out, and he was the one who let me down. And I was there for probably not that long, maybe 15 minutes or something like that. And within that 15-minute time span, I had an epiphany of sorts. And it was one where it was a baby seedling of an epiphany, but one that I really latched onto. And I was thinking that I'm never going to be a victim again. And that all of the terrible things that I've experienced and all of the, bad people I've encountered in my life, none of them were as bad to me as I was to me, even in that moment. Like, it was a weird realization of, I'm responsible for being as miserable as I am, whether I want to blame someone or not. And it was within that of deciding I'm never going to be a victim ever again that I walked home, and I I put my torn shirt under the bed because I didn't want to throw it out right away. I didn't want my mom or someone to like go through the garbage and be like, "Hey, what happened to this shirt?" Because I didn't. It was embarrassing. It was one of those things where it was like, and you liken it to, God, I don't want to say it's like being raped, but at the same time, there's that like embarrassing component of like, it's really hard to tell someone, hey, I was just humiliated and degraded in the worst of ways. Let me flay myself open to you. So I made the choice to hide that shirt, and I asked my mom to bring me to the gym that was across town. And she happily obliged. And in fact, I kind of remember her being like, oh shit, really? Okay. Because, when you're a parent of a 265-pound 14-year-old, and they say, I want to get a gym membership, I can't imagine what parent wouldn't be ecstatic. So no questions asked. She drove me there that night, and that kind of started everything. I got a gym membership, and never really looked back. And God bless my mom, because not only did she bring me there, but I was too young to be able to go on my own. So she would sit there in that lobby, and she would bring whatever magazine she had. And I could tell some days were better than others, because some days you're like, oh, no problem, Josh. Yeah, let's go to the gym. Totally. Yeah, you just let me know what time. And other days it's, we're going to the gym. If you're going to go to the gym tonight, got to get this done. I got things to do. You know what I mean? And every time I'm like, I just got to go ebb and flow with wherever she's feeling, because I'm not getting to the gym otherwise. You got it, mom. And it was a terrible experience that led to the best self-help that I ever could have stumbled upon.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And so, what did that look like at first? What did I would have? Did you have any gym experience? Did you have much physical exercise experience?
I had none. The only physical exercise experience that I had, other than PE, where I was sick a lot for some reason. Other than that, I've always loved football. Absolutely love football. And there's a neighborhood, or our neighborhood, I got to some of the closest friends that I had growing up, who were kind of a safe zone for me. We're those neighborhood kids, and we play a lot of street football. So other than that, that was it. I went into the gym blind. I just knew that I needed to do something. And Yeah, I was as green as you could possibly imagine. And all I did when I first got there, they had this is a Reebok Cycler. I have never seen this thing at any other gym or any other spot in my life. And since I've done a lot of traveling to a lot of gyms, never seen one of these ever. And it was a recumbent bike that had arms that you move back and forth. I've seen variations, but I'd never seen the one that I took. I mean, I camped, man. And I would just get on there for 2.5, 3 hours, if my mom wasn't in the lobby, she'd be like, how much longer you got? I'm like, at least an hour. And okay, well, I'm gonna go do some shopping. I'll come back and then we'll go. And I camped out on that thing forever, and I didn't really change my eating habits yet. I just kind of thought, yeah, this is it. People move and they lose weight, right? And it was just from there a natural process of I lost 30 pounds just from moving. And then I got to a point where I stalled out and I needed to come to the realization of, hey, nutrition's important. And so then I tried, going every route of I did every single diet under the sun. I did all liquids for 3 weeks straight. You name it, I did it. And all in the name of just trying to figure it out. And I was about 2 years into that once I'd lost about 50 or 60 pounds or so, I got into weightlifting. There's a guy, actually, his name is Mike Bell, and I'll never forget him because he was one of those dudes at the gym that everybody knew. And I'd be on my Reebok Cycler just watching him like in awe because he was this former superb athlete. He was about 50 at the time, but just like a rock, just solid, ripped, massive, and just cool. He had this kind of swagger where you're like, I just kind of want to stand next to you because I feel instantly cooler when I'm just in your proximity. And of course, I'm that creepy, chubby, fat kid who he knows none of this. I'm just, you're so cool, Mike. And one day he comes to me and he's like, I see you, young buck. And I'm like, you do? And it just kind of opened up this like, well, then let me ask you some questions. And he was kind of my into getting into weightlifting. And then to make a long story short, I got into bodybuilding. I lost about 90 pounds total. I competed for about 4 years, and that's led to a million other things that I'm doing now. I don't compete anymore, but that was the basis of showing up, not knowing anything at all, being out of my comfort zone, but knowing that being out of my comfort zone was the best thing for me because my comfort zone did nothing but hurt me. And so I just made that dedicated promise to myself. I just have to keep showing up. I just have to keep showing up, and I'll figure it out as I go.
If I ever see a Reebok Cycler at a flea market, antique store, anything, I'm going to package that sucker up and I'm going to send it to you.
Please. I will dip that thing in gold and mount it and have it be on display. Yeah. You let me know. I'm on it.
Okay, I will. So what is not to jump forward too far, but what brought you from that place to getting into being a personal trainer and what you're doing now?
When I was figuring myself out, as I call it, that journey of joining the gym, Reebok Cycler for 2 years, getting into weightlifting, until the journey of actually like getting into competition, I would say between my starting date at the gym and when I ended competing, I was about 22. And so from 14 to 22, my life was dedicated to trying to better myself. As a kid, my friends would be out at parties on Friday nights, and sorry guys, I got a date with the gym. I was that kid. And within that time frame, as I had started to lose weight and just become overall healthier, my high school career, for example, from freshman to senior year, it was something lifted straight out of a movie, to be honest, wherein that I went from the experience that I shared with you and being made fun of and being as low as I could possibly imagine to my senior year. I was voted best all around. I was, one of the top leadership committee members, peer helping, all of that, where I had flourished. I was a 90s high school movie, you know what I mean? And a big reason for that was people started to be like, you're really doing something. And it gave me a chance to kind of work with kids that at first were like, dude, you're at the gym way too much, to, hey, so, I'd like to kind of know what you've done because you're clearly changing. And it was about 18, 19, 20, and 21. I sporadically had people that I started to just train, friends that, would come to the gym with me and would do the workouts with me. And I'd teach them the things that I had learned. And I'd gotten into restaurant work at 17. And it was when I was about that 22-year-old age where I thought, I don't want to do restaurant work anymore. It was as I started to get older, I'm like, I have no fire for restaurant work other than it pays the bills that I minimally have as a 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old. I'm really driven by actually helping people. I'd realized that I was more excited about, I had a buddy, Kevin, for instance, who you could tell he was just soaking up everything. And in my head, I'm like, this is weird because I feel like I know nothing, but to him, I know everything. And it gave me that seed of, I could do this. I love this. And it was from there where I kind of started to develop the, work on the program that I do now. I run something called the Fitness Rebellion in my neck of the woods, the gym here. And I did that with the restaurant work that I was doing. And so I was just working both jobs. And my goal was to eventually get out of the restaurant work. And I, fortunately, after a couple of years, a few years, 3 years of working really hard at becoming an actual personal trainer, not just, like, hey, I like to work out and I've got this story, but learning how to okay, now the skill is to teach that to someone. And now the skill is to know how to balance all these unknowns that don't come with working out, such as scheduling clients and marketing yourself and all this stuff. And so I did it real grassroots and kind of not professional at all, but I think it worked in my favor. And I finally was able to build up a good enough client base that I was able to quit the restaurant industry. And that was 2000, I don't want to say that was 2010. So I've been a personal trainer for the last 9 years or so. And I was doing restaurant work for, about three years into being a trainer. And then, I'll never forget when I was able to only have the training job. And I mean, the messed up part about it is I make way less money now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm able to pay the bills, but when I was doing restaurant work, you just have so much cash in hand every night. And then you go from that to, oh my God, I have to systematically receive payments and I have to build this process. And it's not as easy as here's your sandwich, give me money anymore. And I say that's the messed up part, in that I lost so much income and I couldn't have been happier. And it was, they always say that's how you make the right decision, is when you do it and you go, yeah. And I went, yeah.
That's awesome. What does a typical client look like for you now? What do people come to you for help with?
With the Fitness Rebellion that I run, it's based off of what I wish I would have had when I was going through my journey. And that was a safe space where people felt like they could go, be encouraged, and be a part of something beyond just, I'm in my cubicle and no one look at me and leave me alone. And so essentially, the majority of the people that I work with fall into two categories. people that are really into my history with bodybuilding and know that I have a lot of experience and knowledge based on like actual aesthetic body manipulation, not just being fit, but when you're bodybuilding, it's all about how do I manipulate the ins and outs of my body to the extreme. And or it's people who relate to my story of knowing that they need to do something different, but not knowing how to do it and feeling almost like a bad news bear, so to speak, feeling like they have nowhere to belong. My whole goal is that no matter who you are and where you come from, you got a place to belong at the gym that I'm at. And so typically, I will personally train the clients who are really into the bodybuilding aspect. And the thing that, and anybody listening, don't take this personally, the thing that really motivates me though is the group work, the big group work. And those tend to be the people that are there for something much bigger than just goal-oriented stuff. As you know, so much comes with when you start to get the ball rolling, and it's much bigger than how much weight you've lost, and it's much bigger than how fit you are now and the things you could do. It's like you get your life back. And there's something about group energy, that mob mentality sort of thing, where it's hard to tell it to you like this. One of the best things I've ever heard about the group work that I've fortunately been able to build is that from the outside looking in, it's hard to understand, but from the inside looking out, it's hard to explain. And it comes with that tangible energy that's there. But if you try to have a conversation with someone, like say the fitness rebels that I work with, they're like, I tried to, tell my cousin about it, but it's just, I can't find the words to describe how much fun it is when we're there, but it's really hard, but it's the first time where it's been really hard, but it's also fun. I don't know. And yeah, just bring them, just bring them. Like, don't describe it. Don't get exasperated. Bring them. They'll experience that energy. We're all human. It's this connectivity that a lot of people tend to ignore or try to steer away from, especially nowadays with phones in your face and all that, it's almost bringing it back to grassroots of like, hey, when you walk through those gym doors, it doesn't matter who you are on the outside. It matters what you're there for. And we're all there for the same common goal, which is to better ourselves. And that's going to look different for everybody, but at its basis, it's the same goal. And so I can be very long-winded. Long story short, those are the people that I tend to work with the most and love to work with the most.
That's awesome. Can you talk about maybe somebody who you work with who got their life back, so to speak, and maybe has lost a significant amount of weight, or you've seen a big change, just a quick success story?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I've got Cathy Tyler is a name that comes to mind right off the bat. Her nickname's Taz because when she's in the room, she just and so it was a very natural nickname. And she was someone who, before she joined our gym, she was at the bar every night. She's in the winery business. She is short, very short, and was about 200 pounds. She's about 5'1", and she was 200 pounds when at her heaviest. By the time she joined our gym, she was about, if my memory serves me right, about 175 pounds. And it was joining our gym and going through just meeting her. I've learned a lot from her as well, where she's lost, 50 some odd pounds now, and it's not in that like 200-pound range, but for her it was much bigger in that she was her life was stalled, and she had a daughter, a very young daughter, and she felt like she wasn't there for her daughter anymore. She felt like she was losing that focus as a parent because she couldn't get a handle on herself. And so even though she lost 50 pounds, she gained her self-confidence back, and God, she's never looked back. And it's fun to see her flourish and thrive. And just like all of us, we all have our ups and downs, and she does too. But she's so inspiring to people who meet her just right off the bat. Those people that have that kind of energy where you're like, you're good people. She's one of those good people.
I heard you say in a video, don't let the scale control you. It's a barometer, but it does not decide who you are. Do you see people that you're helping to train that fall into that? And maybe what advice do you give them whenever you see that happening?
That video that you're referring to came about when during the transformation challenges I do, part of it is weekly weigh-ins for those who opt in for that. And it was a day where every single person that had gotten on the scale, whether they had lost only 1 pound or had maintained, it was like I had just kicked their cat in front of them. You know what I mean? And it was person after person after person after person. And so that video that you're talking about, I basically handed the camera that I had to the gym owner, a great friend of mine. His name's John. And I said, record this because I want this to stick. And my advice to people who utilize the scale as the end all be all, the deciding factor, is that if you have a great week of taking care of yourself, I mean, you make so many good decisions, especially compared to maybe a bad decision person that you've been in the past, and you are going headfirst into health and you are taking care of yourself and doing all the right things. You're making it to the gym or you're going on the hikes that you promised you would that you're finally doing. And then all of a sudden, in one moment, you step on a scale and it says you haven't lost weight or you've only lost a pound. That is the exact opposite of what should be controlling your drive and what gets you so excited, because the scale isn't going to tell you all the good decisions that you made. It's not going to give you a comparison point of, hey, remember what you used to do? It was nothing like this last week was, yet you can have a great week of taking care of yourself and just instantly, literally instantly lose all of that stokedness just because it's what we're used to. It's what we know. I mean, Biggest Loser type stuff where it's if it's not a big drop, then I'm a failure kind of thing. When it's no, this is long haul stuff. Like we're trying to not just make this a toy, but make it stick, and don't let that scale be the thing to derail you.
That's great advice. Is there anything that you would say to someone who is where you were when you first started this journey, and maybe a few words of encouragement to help them moving forward?
Yeah, the biggest piece of advice that I could give on that is that if you learn how to show up on the tough days where you don't want to do the things that you know are the best things for you, that is going to be the difference maker between being successful with what you'd like to achieve with yourself and not. It's learning how to show up on the tough days. That's the secret. And a lot of people I've found in my experience are looking to get rid of all their problems. They're looking to work towards the day where they no longer have demons and everything is happy-go-lucky and sunshine and daisies, and they feel great about themselves. And where in reality, you're always going to have your demons. You don't slay your demons, you put a leash on them. And the more bad days that you learn how to show up to, even when you don't want to, the more good days you're going to start to string together. So I guess what it boils down to is when you recognize it's a bad day where you don't want to do the things that you should do it anyway. Do whatever it takes, even if it's half speed, even if it's a lethargic attempt, even if it's this depressing, like, at the gym and doing whatever. At least you're there. At least you're showing up, and at least you're keeping your momentum. Don't lose your momentum. Show up on the tough days. That's what matters most.
That's great advice. And if I know it's been a long time, but if you could go back in time, is there any advice that you think you could have given yourself prior to that point that you decided to make a change that would have made a difference? If you could have had a conversation with yourself with the information, the experience, and the knowledge that you have now?
Yeah, I would remind myself, because it was something that I battled with for a long time, that working hard is its own reward, and don't spend years of your life comparing your hard work to someone else's hard work, because your hard work is your hard work. And if you compare your shadow to someone else's, you're in for a long day and you're not focusing on the right things. And that would have saved me a lot of, I guess, anxiety and stress, going through my journeys for a long time. I compared myself to anybody that I deemed better than me. And it took me a really long time to realize that to look at someone as being better than me it's incorrect. Because I'm not them, they're not me. And my hard work speaks on its own right for me, not for anybody else, but for me. Other people aren't doing things for me to recognize them. Why should it be the other way around? You know what I mean? In regards to that comparison point of I'm only successful if I'm as ripped as that person, or my diet's as on point as that person, or I'm as fit as they are. Yeah, would have saved me a lot of anxiety. And I mean, a lot of this stuff holds true, even not with health. You know what I mean? A lot of this stuff is true with any endeavor that you're going after, whether it's work, whether it's a relationship. I mean, a lot of this stuff is universal, and I'm thankful for learning this stuff in the gym and learning this stuff through bettering my own health, because it has enhanced every other aspect of my life. It's a work ethic that translates beyond the workouts that I do.
And before I ask you the last question, I have to ask, what's up with the shovel?
So the shovel represents that you always have the ability to dig a little deeper. And the way that came about was I was on my fifth transformation challenge. I'm up to 21 now. I do 3 a year. But right before my fifth one started, I was at home watching a documentary on the Navy SEALs. And there's a portion where they were talking about, Hell Week, and they have the bell hanging around at Hell Week where it's always there. And if you can't take any more, you go and you ring that bell, and it's your one-way ticket home. It's your plane ride. It's your escape. No questions asked. You just have to live with the fact that you're a quitter. And I'm watching this and I'm like, that's awesome, but I would hate that. You know what I mean? Like, and recognizing A, I will never be a Navy SEAL, and B, I get what they're doing and I understand the importance of that to the Navy SEALs and what they're trying to do. But there has to be something motivating that can work for everyday common folk like myself. There has to be something where it's along the same lines, but less of a negative encouragement and more of a remember you've got this encouragement. And I looked outside, and there's a shovel leaning up against my grill, and I thought, that's it. Dig deep. What can I do with this? And I went to Home Depot. I got a couple cans of spray paint, went in my garage, and I painted that thing up green and purple, because at the time, and I still am, I'm very into the Incredible Hulk. So I'm like, well, it's going to be my homage. And I brought it to the gym, and I show up into the aerobic room, and I gather everybody circle around, slam it down into the floor, and I wish that I was aware enough to be like, I should probably get a screenshot of everyone's looks on their faces, because it was just mass confusion. Like, are we going to get hurt? Like, did he snap? He's got a painted shovel. I don't know what's happening here, because I told nobody about it. You know what I mean? And I hoisted it up, and I'm like, this is our symbol. This is going to be our everything. And I had made a mount on the wall that hung up right above the entrance of our aerobic room. And I said, this is going to hang on that mount always. Unless we are working out in here, then this thing is going to be traveling all over the place while we are doing our workout. And it represents you always have the ability to dig a little deeper. And it stuck. People were like, yeah, like, we have a symbol, we have a mascot, so to speak. You know what I mean? Again, it played into that mob mentality. And so from there, it just took off. Each challenge that I do and have done from then on gets a new shovel, and it gets a new paint job. It gets a new aesthetic based on whatever the theme of the new challenge is that I'm doing, because I don't do the same challenge over and over and over again. I have a skeleton that I alter, because I don't want people to be like, I did one and I know the experience. I want every single time to be a different experience for someone that does it, even if you do it over and over and over again. Last challenge is going to be different than the next one, different than the 1-2 challenges before that, so to speak. And so it's just grown from there. If someone's having a tough time, I'll slam that shovel down in front of them. They know exactly what it means. You know what I mean? And you can see people like, yeah, all right. And it's kind of, I liken it to like when you're a kid and you're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to clean my room today. And then like maybe 10 minutes later, you're walking through the hall and your mom goes, hey, clean your room. And then instantly you're not motivated to clean your room anymore. You know, you're like, well, I was going to, but now because you asked me, I don't want to do it. You know, it kind of took that mentality with the shovel of I'm not telling people to clean their room. I'm just reminding them that they can clean it if they want. And people ran with that. People, I've learned and have experienced over the years that people enjoy positive encouragement without being yelled at, without being negatively motivated in terms of like, you know, standing over someone going, you want to be miserable the rest of your life. You know, there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for that. And it's not at the gym when people are already experiencing being negatively pushed into the dirt with whatever they're going through in their real life. They don't need to go through that and then come to the gym only to experience more of that. And so that's what the shovel means. That's what the shovel represents. And it's it's really grown in its stature. Anytime Fitness, they opened their new headquarters, I want to say 2 days ago, state-of-the-art facility. And hey, I'm on a Skype. Oh no, you're fine. Anytime Fitness just recently opened their new state-of-the-art headquarters, and a couple years ago they broke ground on it with a Rebel shovel that I had gone to Florida and I painted it up and I gifted it to the CEOs. And so, I mean, it's traveled, you know, the story of the shovel. And if I ever go do a speaking engagement, I make a point to wherever I'm at, I'll go to the hardware store first and I'll get a shovel and I will grab a couple cans of spray paint. I will go into a back alley somewhere. I mean, I've gone on hotel lawns in the back of like the building hoping no one catches me. I've been in Kentucky at the bottom of an airport where people are like, you need to go, like some NSA security agent type stuff. You know, I've been all over in Nashville. I remember being in this homeless alley. It was the only like area that I felt like I could paint something and wouldn't get in trouble. And I'll leave the shovel wherever I'm at. And so again, long story short, that's the shovel.
Awesome. Well, lastly, where can people find out more about you and maybe connect with you?
I've got a website. It's called timetorebel.com. And there I've got everything from original Rebel workouts to you can order a shirt that I could paint up for you to I've been fortunate enough to have a couple television appearances. My backgrounds on Rebels that have been doing this thing for a while and have success stories of their own. I've got write-ups on those. Music, if you're in search of some good workout music, I've got all sorts of workout music on there. It's basically a lot of what we talked about consolidated into a website, timetorebel.com. It's got my contact info on there, everything that you could think of.
Well, Josh, you, sir, are a rock star. Thank you for the time. Thank you for what you're doing and for the inspiration, for being honest about your story. And we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
I look forward to it, my friend.
All right. Have a good one.
Hey, thank you, Jason.